And welcome back, rugby fans, to Rugby 411. As always, I'm your host. My name is Joshua Shibata, and we're doing something a little bit different today. I was promising my viewers and followers here on the Rugby 411 channel, especially doing something for RFCLA fans. Now, granted, I know not everybody is an RFCLA fan. Actually, we probably have a lot more non RFCLA fans than we do have RFCLA fans. But considering obviously I work for them, but I'm a passionate fan. I love my team here in LA. I love my prior team in LA, the LA Guiltinis, even though that also wasn't a very popular take. I thought I'd do something a little bit different and focusing on the RFCLA team, and giving the many LA fans and the many future LA RFCLA rugby fans a little bit of information on the team, a little bit of a preview of our upcoming game, which is as of this time. I'm filming this very late on Friday night, hoping to get this up before Saturday morning. And this should be real quick and just a real nice little primer to watch right before the game. If you've never been to an RFCLA game or a rugby game in general, things to look out for, things to be interested in. If you want to become a fan of the team, this is going to be kind of one of your one-stop shops to find all the information you need on the team. Obviously, you could always go to rugbyfcla.com for all the information on the team, buying tickets as well. Follow on social media our Rugby FCLA on Instagram and on the X, and you can get all the information there. Almost all the players on the team have Instagram accounts and X accounts, so follow them. They're very, very chattable and social with a lot of fans. You can go to the game, and I feel rugby is one of those rare sports, if you've never been to a rugby match, where you have the opportunity to meet the players after the game right on the pitch. So again, if there's any more reason why to come out, is to get a chance to actually meet the players, get to know the stars, and hopefully you become a fan and a big supporter as well. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go over a couple of things. I'm going to try to make this as brief as possible, and I'm going to start with right here. Whoop, wrong one. Though we will be talking about those gentlemen in just a moment. But here we go. We're going to start with talking about overall, not just the prior game that we just had. Unfortunately, LA falling to our bitter rivals, the San Diego Legion, in the latest installment of the Cali Cup, losing 28-36 over Ontario Stadium in San Diego. But it's also a little review over the season. Granted, the season's very young. It's only been 3 games for us. This is technically the 4th week because there was an early bye for us. We are 0-3. We're hoping to change that with our game coming up with Seattle. But this is a little bit of a review of the good, the bad, and the ugly of the season so far. And let's start with the good. So first of all, the good. If you love scoring points, if you love a powerful offense, RFCLA is it. We are one of the top scoring teams in the league. We have scored 73 points and over 3 games, which is phenomenal. And especially in the first half, we come out guns blazing. So if you like good offensive teams, this is it. One person I would definitely like to shout out and showcase, and there's a couple of players. What I also like to do, especially when reviewing prior games, is to maybe have like a man of the match mention, or at least players that you should be looking out for, and we're giving them their flowers, as we like to say. So especially with our last game against San Diego, Ed Timpson, the young British player, he's only 21, spent a season with the Bristol Bears, and as well as spent a season in the Shoot Shield competition in Australia. That's where he came onto the radar with our Australian coaching staff. He was he's been a phenomenal player, honestly, ever since he's come onto the pitch. He scored 2 tries in the game against San Diego. He was picked as a top 15 player of the week by MLR, the only Rugby FCLA player to do that. Like I said, he's been a phenomenal young player, a great addition to our flanker position, along with the other young Timothy Anstey. Both of them a phenomenal little power pack that we just picked up, making their debuts in Major League Rugby. Now, as I mentioned before, there's a couple of other players we're going to talk about, introduce, because there has been a couple of other games, and they've all done phenomenal in all the games, not just in the last one against San Diego. But the next guy really needs no introduction, Billy Meakes. The return of Billy Meakes to LA. If you were familiar with the prior LA franchise, the LA Guiltinis, Billy Meakes was one of the biggest stars on our team. And that says a lot because our team had a bunch of stars. We had Matt Gateau. We had Dave Dennis, who is now our assistant coach. We had so much talent on that team. And Billy Meakes really stood out at that time as a youngster from Australia to pick up 2 back-to-back back of the year awards by Major League Rugby. It is now, after the LA Guiltinis folded, Billy Meakes came back, went to Chicago, and then just recently came back here to LA to pick up where he left off. Now, I want to mention about Billy Meakes is that, you know, there's been some controversy, and I'll admit I'm one of them, that were questioning why Sam Harris, the coach of Chicago, I don't know if it was purely his idea, why Billy Meakes, who's normally a center, was sometimes put up in the fly half position, which is kind of like the quarterback position in rugby. And it definitely seemed like an interesting position for Billy Meakes to play. One that, again, where the controversy was, where it didn't feel like they were using all of his abilities, which is usually as a center to be not only an offensive power, but a defensive power as well in the middle of the pitch. Thing is, when you watch Billy Meakes now, he is very much like a general on the pitch, which is what a fly half is. The fly half and the scrum half are both pretty much like the quarterback of the offense. The scrum half is kind of the quarterback of the front half of the team, more of the defensive, while the fly half is more of the quarterback of the back half of the team. And both of them have to communicate with each other. Billy Meakes is very much like that. I mean, he's not necessarily always passing the ball, but man, when he does, you can see he has that vision, especially in the game with San Diego. The game against Houston. There are 2 tries that were scored, and it was purely because of the vision of Billy Meakes. He has these cheeky little chip kicks where he will just push the ball with his foot into the path of a running fellow teammate, and that leads to a score. I mean, Billy Meakes has such a great vision of the field, and I'm starting to see why now he was kind of put into the position of fly half sometimes with Chicago. And so I apologize to Sam Harris, Coach Harris, that I felt that was such a weird thing for him to do, but man, it actually makes a lot of sense because you see what Billy Meakes can do on the pitch. And so now that he's here at RFCLA, going back more to a center position, as a center, he is using his ability to figure out where the ball needs to go to be like that backup scrum half or fly half, which is just phenomenal to have him. So it's great that Billy Meakes is back in LA. And I'd also like to mention that Billy knows a thing or two about a good cup of coffee. Shout out to him and his Boulevard Venice, his cafe in Venice. If you're in the LA or Venice Beach area, hit up the Boulevard. It is a vibe, as they like to say, over there. Another player, another new addition to RFCLA, a veteran, Christian Lealifano, who is our fly half. He has been phenomenal ever since being added on to the team. So far, he has 26 points in the season, and that's with only 3 games. He is the 3rd highest point scorer in all of the league. He has been phenomenal off of the tee. I don't want to jinx one of the stats that he has because watch in this game tomorrow or later on today, depending on what time this gets posted, it's going to jinx him. But Christian has been phenomenal. If you've never heard of him, he is a legend in more of the Super Rugby Pacifica area. He has played for both Australia and Samoa, one of the rare players to play on 2 nations teams in the Rugby World Cups. Australia for the 2019 Rugby World Cup, 2023 he played for Samoa. He is the first Pacific Islander to score over 1,000 points in Super Rugby Pacifica, which is the pro league in the Pacific Islands area nation That covers Australia, the Southern Hemisphere. That covers Australia, New Zealand, Argentina. Used to cover Japan as well, but phenomenal player, and it's great to have his experience now on the team. He has made a huge difference with RFCLA, and alongside with him, our scrum half. He also needs no introduction. Gonzalo Butrano, over 65 caps for the Los Pumas, the Argentinian national team. He also has played in 2 Rugby World Cups, 2019 and 2023, representing his home country of Argentina. He has been phenomenal on the pitch as well. And so, again, those players that I just mentioned, players definitely to look out for if you are new to the squad. And I want to mention the artistic drawings by one Dalyn Montgomery. You can follow him on Instagram at Bro Hamas. He is a huge rugby fan. He was a huge fan of the Guiltinis, just like yours truly, and he's now a big supporter of Rugby FCLA. He is the one that provided this amazing art. So if you're wondering if the players look like this, yes, you'll see them on the pitch, and they look exactly like the drawings. I mean, it's very Alex Ross-like. If you're into comic books, you'll know who that is. That reference is. And I feel that would be a high praise to Mr. Montgomery, but he is phenomenal with the art. So that's the good. Let's now move on to the bad. Unfortunately, with the way that things have been going with RFCLA, of course, as I mentioned before, high point scoring offense. First half, we are coming out guns blazing. It's the second half that we, for whatever reason, have just not figured it out. First half, just to run some stats by you, we score 56 points compared to our opponent's 32 points in the first half. 56 points of 32. We're scoring 8 tries in 3 games compared to our opponent's 4. In the second half, we have only scored in just 3 games. I know it's a small pool of information, but in just 3 games, second half, we have scored 17 points. We have allowed our opponents to score 73 points. That's right, 73 points in the second half. We have only scored 2 tries compared to our opponent's 11 tries. Granted, 5 of those tries were by Houston themselves. So in all 3 games, we have been up. Against New England, 14-10. Against Houston, 28-12. Against San Diego, 14-10. And we've lost all 3 of those games, sadly. So really, right now, we are just not a second half team. Don't know what it is. It doesn't look like we're tired. It doesn't look like our bench is any different than anyone else's bench. It just feels like maybe our team gets a little overconfident because we're doing so well. I mean, again, especially the Houston game. If you were there in LA at Annenberg Stadium against Houston, the vibe of the day was so hot, especially after the first half, 28-12 against the team that was the best team in the league last season. Then all of a sudden just completely fell apart in the second half. We allowed them to score 5 tries in the second half. So, and we didn't score any points. So I don't know what it is that we need that wake-up call for the second half, but for whatever reason, we just need to pick it up because especially with Seattle, who has been struggling too, it's a winnable game. And I'll talk about when we preview the Seattle game. But if we can't put up points in the second half, we're not going to win that game either. Now, unfortunately, there is another bigger issue with the ugly, and that is penalties. And this is a little bit frustrating coming from a fan from last season, because last season we struggled a lot with penalties as well. We were the most penalized team last season. This season, we are tied for the most, and it's only been 4 weeks of the season. We've been tied with the most cards given to any team. We are tied with Chicago with 2 red cards and 5 yellow cards. The only difference is Chicago has played 4 games. We've only played 3. So with their 4 games, 1 extra game, we are still tied with them with the highest number of cards being given but to any team. Our last game against San Diego, we unfortunately got 2 yellow cards and a red card. So unfortunately, discipline is still a big issue. And to be honest, with that San Diego game, that is purely, I feel, the reason why we lost that game. We were down 2 men for nearly half of the second half. So 20 minutes of the second half of that second period, we were down 2 men. And if you know about rugby, rugby is all about numbers. If you are down 1 man, that's a huge, huge thing. being down two, almost impossible to win a game that way. I don't care how talented you are of a team. And it's statistically, I haven't run the numbers for this one, but it seems statistically, this season especially, whatever team scores or whatever team gets a yellow card and loses a player, the other team almost always scores a try. I wouldn't doubt it's like 95%. So we're already handicapping ourselves whenever we get a penalty and a yellow card. So that needs to definitely change. And I'm hoping it does too. Because again, the reason that we can lose to Seattle is purely by either coming out flat in the second half or just killing ourselves with penalties and yellow cards. So hopefully we can clear that up as we go into the game with Seattle. Before we go into that, a little bit of housekeeping with the team itself. Unfortunately, it was announced that Cameron Gerlach, who is our young New Zealander player who was playing fullback, has been traded away to Anthem Rugby Carolina for an international slot. If you don't know about rugby, you are only allowed in Major League Rugby to have a certain number of international players to play in a starting lineup of 15 players. The cap is usually 10. You can trade those international slots to other teams. So actually, we have 2 additional ones. So at most, we can have 12 international players on our starting 15 because we have a slot that open. So we traded that for Cameron Gerlach. So Cameron, we didn't really know him too much. Again, this was his first season with RFCLA. He is a young New Zealander. This is his first year of Major League Rugby. He only got to play 1 game. I thought he was pretty talented, so it is kind of a bummer to lose him. But we say goodbye to Mr. Gerlach, and we say hello to Mr. Franco Vandenberg, who has over 6 years experience with the Utah Warriors since the 2019 season. He is a big, beefy South African prop. He has over 420 tackles in his Major League Rugby career, remarkable 116 tackles in just his rookie year alone. He's been struggling a little bit with injuries, but he's coming back fresh, and so he will be a nice addition to our prop because unfortunately, if you haven't heard, we lost Connor Young, unfortunately, with a very severe knee injury. I don't want to say lost. He has had surgery. The projection is he could come back for maybe the last 3 or 4 games of the season, but we kind of do need somebody at that prop position. And man, Franco Vandenberg definitely adds that experience, especially after his years with the Utah Warriors. So again, we say goodbye to Cameron Gerlach. Good luck with Anthem Rugby Carolina. And we say hello to Mr. Vandenberg. Now, moving on to our next game coming up later on today, Saturday. We are going to be back at Wallis Annenberg Stadium at the campus of UCLA to host the Seattle Seawolves, the very first two-time MLR champions, and the only one of only 2 teams to have a MLR Shield currently with the teams that are in Major League Rugby. So Seattle definitely has a high pedigree. Unfortunately, they've been struggling quite a bit this season. They come in, they got their very first win last week against a very game New England Free Jacks, the only other team with 2 MLR championships under their belt. So Seattle definitely is a team that's been struggling quite a bit. So there is the opportunity that we can beat them, but this is their starting lineup. We won't go totally into depth, but I'll point out a couple players that you should keep an eye out for if you are an RFCLA fan. Cameron Orr at that loose head number 1 prop. He scored 2 tries in their game against New England, so he has been kind of on a roll. I want to make a mention about the tight head prop, the other side of the prop, Juan Pablo Zeiss. He was a phenomenal player for the Dallas Shackles, who are now defunct, has come over to Seattle, so definitely a guy to watch out for, as well as, of course, their number 8, their captain, Rickard Hatting, a capped Eagle. He has the 2nd highest number of tries in all of Major League Rugby history, right behind Dylan the Butcher Fawcett at 48 tries, I believe. And, of course, you also got to mention number 11, Malachi Isdale. He is a crossover star from the Rugby Sevens program. The crossover is a program that takes players from a different sports background. In this case with Malachi Isdale, he was a college football player, gives him a chance to play rugby, and he discovered he loved it, and he was really good at it. He played a couple of years with the USA Sevens program, and has now transitioned over to the 15s game. And man, if you didn't watch the game against New England, Malachi Isdale literally pulled off a walk-off try to win the game. Seattle was down 4 points. Malachi Isdale literally came off of the bench and scored a try moments later to allow Seattle to win the game. So definitely shout out to him. On the reserves, we got to point out Dewalt Coatsay, the number 16 player. He scored in one game last season with the defunct Dallas Jackals, 5 tries in one game, all of them off of the maul and score, which has been a weakness for RFCLA. We definitely have a problem stopping an opposing team's maul from bowling over us onto the try zone. So hopefully we can figure that out, because if Dewalt Coatsay comes off of the bench, that is definitely going to be something that Seattle wants to do, is run that maul and score with Dewalt Coatsay behind the maul. And then, of course, got to mention and shout out to a very great friend of mine, number 20, Pago Haini, former LA Guillotines, now a Seattle Seawolf, coming off of his suspension from getting a red card 2 games prior. He's now back onto the team. 21, Brock Gallagher, another sevens player, this time from the Canadian program, starting in the 15s, definitely a guy to watch out for when he gets onto the pitch. And then the return of the number 23 player, Jay Stiglin, a young South African player. He had 10 tries scored last season. A phenomenal rookie year for Jay Stiglin. He was my rookie of the year last year. Nothing to take away from Junior Goffa, who won it for the anthem, but I felt Jay Stiglin should have deserved that award. But it is nice to see, well, not nice for us RFCLA fans to see him on the reserve roster, but definitely a guy to watch out for if he gets off of the bench. And now, let's talk about your starting RFCLA lineup. Again, won't be able to go through everybody there, but just to point out a couple people to look out for. Number 1, Dane Zander. Phenomenal young talent. This will be his first time starting this season. Last season, he was a fixture of the RCLA lineup. This will be his first game coming back, so it's great to see him there. Of course, number 4, Jason Dom, our team captain, who has been playing in every game. And then another return of Yuri Van Buren at the number 5 right lock position. Yuri has been a phenomenal veteran player from Major League Rugby, comes over from the former from the Utah Warriors team to come into LA. Unfortunately, he got injured very early in the season last season, suffered a horrible knee injury during practice, and now this is his first time coming back, so it's great to see him on the pitch. Mentioned before, Ed Timpson at the number 7. Of course, number 9 and 10, Gonzalo Bertrano, Christian Leal-Fano, that I've mentioned before, Billy Meakes at number 12. Of course, you also got to make a shout out to our 2 wingers who are scoring machines, Andrew Coe, Christian Dyer at the number 14. I believe this is Christian Dyer's 48th cap in Major League Rugby, so getting very close to the 50 mark. And then Rory Van Voot, who has been an unsung star at the number 15 as well. And then, as I mentioned before, number 18 is Franco Vandenberg. So our new acquisition will possibly get his first chance to suit up onto the pitch. He's going to come off of the bench. And then, of course, the return at number 22 of Sean Nolan. Sean Nolan was an academy player, also came from Belmont Shore Rugby. He was an academy player that actually got a few chances to start last season because we were so thin at our fly half and scrum half position that Sean Nolan came in. I thought he did a phenomenal job, so it's great to see him back on the team, even if it's at the reserve spot as well. So that is our top 15 and our reserves. Great team. Again, I gotta mention, we have a great chance at winning this game. I'm going to pull back up the roster on the Seattle. So, ways that we can beat Seattle. First of all, Seattle, I don't know if it was just the last game, but there has been a kicking issue with Seattle. Number 10, their fly half, Eddie Fouché, and their backup kicker, Rodney Iona, who's at the number 12 in this game. Both of them were really struggling off of the tee. Eddie Fouché missed all 3 conversion attempts in the game last week against New England. Rodney Iona only was 1 for 3. So I don't know if it was just that game, but Eddie Fouché has also been struggling with kicks in the prior 2 games as well. There was a player that Seattle had, Mac Mason, who was the number 1 scoring player last season. Unfortunately, did not return to Major League Rugby. And Seattle has tried their best to find the person to replace Mac Mason. And no disrespect to Eddie Fouché, and no disrespect to Ronnie Aona, who they picked up from NOLA. But those are big boots to fill. And I think, honestly, Seattle's really going to struggle with that. So, with that being said, if we can make sure that they don't score as many tries, minimize the abilities to kick, even if they have the opportunity to kick some penalties, it's not going to be as fearful as we have to fear from if they had a very confident kicker, like, for example, with Christian Leofiano, our kicker. I believe the mindset with Seattle will be that they won't go for points. They'll have to go for the try just because the kicking isn't 100% confident. So that could be a way that we could take care of that. Because honestly, the game against New England was very, very close. And if it wasn't for all the missed kick attempts, Seattle could have ran away with that game, but they didn't. So if we can capitalize on that, we can be pretty good with it. And again, if we can clean up the penalties, if we can kind of figure out a way to not lose it in the second half, it's a very good chance we can win this game. So I know we're still searching for that first victory. I feel confident we can do it in this one, but we can't get that confidence unless you, the fans, show up at Wallis Annenberg Stadium on the campus of UCLA, easy for me to say, at 7 o'clock. Just to let you know, also with the game, doors will open at 6. We'll have the performance by these three gentlemen, Emperor's Night, a 3-piece band that's going to be rocking at 6:20 right before the game. So come out early. If you are a season ticket holder, and the only way you can be a season ticket holder is go to rugbyfcla.com, you can get early access to come on to the venue at 5 o'clock. We'll have a meet and greet as well, a chance to meet and greet with the players. We'll have a happy hour as well for those of you who can legally drink, but it's open to kids as well. Get a chance to meet the players. You will get to meet the players afterwards as well. And then, of course, again, for everybody else, 6 o'clock is when the venue opens. 6:20 is when Emperor's Night performs. And then 7 o'clock is kickoff time. Just a little FYI, because I'm really big on this. It's going to be cold. Predicted weather is going to be about 60 to 55 degrees between the hours of 7 and 9 p.m. The sun does go down about 7, so we're going to have it pretty much dark by the time we start to play. So I highly recommend bundle up. It has been raining last couple of days, but it should be clear skies, but it's going to get cold. So definitely bundle up, but come out, bring your voice, bring the warmth, but definitely bring the jacket because it's going to be cold. So, but that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Like I said, something a little bit different to provide for RFCLA fans. I'm hoping to try to keep this going as a constant thing. Maybe call it Notes from the Clubhouse or something like that. So I hope you guys enjoyed it. Thank you very much, as always, for supporting my channel and my videos, and I'll see you on the pitch. Let's go, RFCLA.